Hello, this is a model of the brain, and if you can see, the brain is labeled with some areas. I'm going to talk about those areas a little bit and describe their function. Let's begin. We'll start off with the middle temporal gyrus. The middle temporal gyrus is responsible for perception of movement objects and spatial recognition. If we move here to this yellow area, superior temporal gyrus, that area is responsible for recognition of sound and speech. And if we move up here to this area, this blue area, the angular gyrus, this area is responsible for comprehension, number processing, reasoning, memory retrieval, and social cognition. While this red area here is Heschel's gyrus, and it is responsible for speech production and phonological retrieval. If we move the brain a little bit, we see this blue area back here. This blue area back here is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is responsible for coordination of movement and balance. Now let's move up north and let's see this area right here. We're looking at a black line. This black line represents the central sulcus. And the central sulcus separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. Next to it, we see a light purple area. This is the postcentral gyrus. It is posterior to the central sulcus, and it is responsible for the sensation of touch, pain, pressure, and vibration. While this light blue area is called the precentral gyrus, and it is anterior to the central sulcus, and it is responsible for skeletal movement. If we look up here, we see that the brain is kind of divided. This area is called the cerebral longitudinal fissure. And this area separates the cerebrum of the brain into two hemispheres, left and right. The hemispheres also communicate with each other through the corpus callosum. This area right here in the yellow is the frontal lobe. This part of the brain is associated with reasoning and planning and movement. And then if we move over here to this light blue area, pretty color, here we have the temporal lobe. And this area is associated with perception and recognition of auditory stimuli, memory, and speech. If we move right here, this is the occipital lobe, and it is responsible for vision. While back here, we have the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is associated with sensory and perception and integration of touch, pressure, temperature, spatial orientation, and movement, of also processing information. And then we have this little black line right here. This represents the lateral fissure. Lateral fissure serves to separate the temporal lobe from the frontal and parietal lobe. And then right here in this pink area, we have the Wernicke's area. This area is responsible for language comprehension. And then right over here in this blue area, we have Broca's area. Broca's area is also responsible for speech production, where here it's language comprehension, Broca's area is speech production. And then if we move back here, back to the behind the cerebellum, we have the brainstem. The brainstem is a bridge that communicates you could think of it like a bridge that communicates between the cerebrum with the cerebellum and the spinal cord. Our brainstem sends messages to the rest of our body to regulate balance, breathing, heart rate, and more. Once again, here is the model of the brain, along with some areas labeled.